and welcome to Killer Queens, a true crime podcast. I'm your host, Torella.
And I'm your better, prettier, younger host, Tori. We're sisters who are obsessed with true crime.
And love gal-palin with you about cases. You can expect the occasional curse word,
lots of Friends quotes, and all the 90s nostalgia.
To get in on the conversation, check us out at killerqueenspodcast.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook at Killer Queens Podcast, and we're on YouTube at Killer Queens, a true crime podcast.
Okay, y'all, grab your Capri Suns or your Surge, and let's talk about some true crime.
Welcome to Killer Queens, dudes.
Back with the dudes, eh?
I know. You know what I figured out is I'm calling my kids dudes a lot. I'm like, hey, dudes, time to brush your teeth. Hey, dudes, get ready for bed. Like, I don't know why, but I'm just calling them dudes all the time. So it's apparently a thing I'm saying now.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah. I guess we should go ahead and let you know that apparently I'm going to have a cold for a year, and it has transformed into perhaps like a sinus infection now. So sorry, this is what I sound like.
Sounds great.
Mm-hmm. It's better than it was.
Yeah.
Not much, but better.
Yeah.
All right. So before we get to the case, we just want to, of course, always let you know if you want extra episodes, you can check out our Patreon. We do 3 shows a week, like 3 episodes a week. 2 of them are patron only. So if you sign up at the $10 level or higher, you get 3 episodes a week. If you sign up below that, you get other perks. You get ad-free episodes. Every single episode is ad-free. There's lots of reasons to join. And we're up to episode like 90 or 91 on the mixtape. And then we've got how many doc jams now? We've done like Confession Killer,
Who Killed Little Gregory, The Jinx,
Don't F with Cats.
Yes, we've done a lot. And so if you join now, you'll have all of those at your disposal and you can just binge your little baby heart away.
Exactly. We're finishing up Outcry right now, and I guess we need to pick the next one. So
yes, that's going to be a toughie.
Yeah. So, there's reasons to join. So check it out. If you want some extra eps, we'd love to have you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we also have at the $10 level a Facebook group that's just for $10 and up. So get a little more interaction there, which is fun. We got a fun little fam over there.
Yeah. It's just fun.
It's fun. Yeah. So fun. All right. So we'll get into today's case. This is the Dyatlov Pass incident.
And it's requested by Courtney Karen. Thanks, girl. I messed that up. I feel like you always say, hey, girl, thanks. So
we sure do. It's kind of a thing.
We don't. You do.
I feel like it's our thing now, though. People say it all the time.
You made me say it.
But it's cute. I like saying it, no matter what, no matter if you're a boy or a girl or not. Like, I think it's just fun. Hey, girl, thanks.
Yeah. No, I enjoy calling everyone a girl. It's a term of endearment. I also like to call everyone a dummy. So interchangeable in my book.
Oh, well, that makes me feel better because you call me a dummy a lot.
It's a term of endearment. But let's not forget that Sloan was our researcher.
Yes.
Hey, dummy, thanks.
Okay.
That didn't work. It does
not work. No. Feels not good. Hey, girl, thanks.
Okay, so let's get into it.
Okay. On February 14th, 1959, a hiking group of 9 capable and experienced hikers was supposed to return from their 16-day hiking trip over 217 miles in the Ural Mountains, which divide Europe and Asia. This was considered one of the more difficult treks out there, but all 9 hikers were absolutely more than capable of completing the trip. These are not people like you and me who are like, yeah, I'll go for like a little bit of a hike, and you're wearing like Toms because that's the only remotely athletic shoes you have. Like, they knew their shit. They knew what they were doing.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm willing to bet you're the same way as I am with like a bike ride where I'm like, yeah, let's go for a bike ride. And it's just like, La-di-da, circle, 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 go back inside and take a nap.
Yeah, when we went to Florida last year with Hunter and Lauren and them, they had bikes at our house, and there was one like adult size tricycle basically, and I was going to ride that one because I'm too short for regular people bikes. Like I cannot touch the ground at all. I can't reach the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, I'm just going to do the tricycle, but the freaking tires were flat on it. And Andrew was like, Torella, you can ride a regular bike. I was like, dude, I can't touch the ground. It makes me nervous. So they made me practice in front of them, and everybody was laughing. I thought Lauren was going to die. She was laughing so hard because she can reach the ground fine. So it's like when we're stopped at a road, like a stop sign or whatever, waiting for traffic to pass, you just put your one foot down. Yeah, but I have to hop all the way down and then get all the way back up. And I was so scared. I was so anxious the whole time. I felt like I needed like an anxiety medication because I was like, I'm going to fall, I'm going to fall, I'm going to fall, I'm going to fall. And the whole time I was just like, when is this over? When is this over? When is this over? I made it, but I was very nervous.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't like to feel like what I'm doing is, I like to have my situation set for me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be like, yeah, I'll wear shoes 6 sizes too big. It's fine. I'll make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, it's not going to work for me.
Yeah, exactly. But, these people, they knew what they were doing. They've done it before, and they were ready to conquer this like level. What was it? Like category 3. So apparently it was like, category 1 is the easiest and 3 is the hardest. So they're like up for the challenge, basically.
Mm-hmm.
The team of 9, well, initially the team was 10 people, but we'll get into why it pairs down to 9. But the team of 9 included students, former students, and one prospective professor from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, which is referred to as UPI, in Sverdlovsk, now Yekaterinburg, the 4th largest city today in Russia. So this was in Soviet Russia, where most were members of the UPI hiking club. So again, very, very experienced. And I'm also really super trying on the pronunciation. So please give a Southern girl a little grace. However, not one of the 9 returned from the trip. When they didn't return, family, friends, and UPI thought they were just delayed. I mean, the weather's really bad. It's a long trip anyway. It wouldn't be totally unusual for them to be a little delayed. But after a few more days, there was still no word from the group, and parents were starting to get more and more worried and started really harping on the UPI to take some action. Like, quit telling us they're just delayed. Something's going on.
Mm-hmm.
At this time, there was no specific unit of searchers. So instead, a group of friends, fellow skiers, community members, and students and teachers made up the team of searchers that would go out and look for the missing group. The first thing they found was the collapsed and abandoned tent, along with many of the team's belongings and supplies, but the hikers were still nowhere to be seen. It's so awful.
It's terrifying. Oh my gosh. So let's get into who the team was. First, the team leader was 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, which I, of course, want to say Igor.
Yeah,
from Young Frankenstein.
Exactly. Igor.
I'm sure he had a friend named Frederick Frankenstein. He was born January 13th, 1936. He was the leader of the group, like I said, and was well respected by his fellow hikers. He joined the UPI hiking club during his first year and had been hiking harder and harder trails ever since. In fact, he had been hiking with the UPI hikers since he was in the 7th grade. His older brother, Vyacheslav, attended UPI and hiked with them, and Igor would go with them. Igor even had a portable radio that he'd made himself.
Pretty smart dude.
Totally smart. Especially for as young as he was. My gosh.
Yeah.
Like very, very handy, very, very technical, and very mechanical.
Yeah, for sure.
Now in his 5th year at UPI, the 23-year-old was on track to graduate with a degree in radio engineering. He was described as someone who was thorough and friendly. Igor was also called brave, confident, experienced, and passionate. The USSR had launched Sputnik in 1957, and Igor was very good with mechanical things and engineering. According to Igor's younger sister, Tatiana, getting to UPI was challenging and competitive. It was impressive to get accepted and graduate from there. To the BBC, she said, it was so magical. Everyone believed that after he graduated, Igor would go on to cosmonautics. It was a brand new industry, and he wanted to be a part of it. Imagine the war had just ended and the country was utterly devastated. Everything had to be restored. Specialists were needed. Igor and his friends wanted to study serious subjects, engineering, physics, complex technical topics. Everyone wanted to work hard for their homeland. They were real Soviet people in the best sense of the word.
These are very mature. I mean, most of the hikers are like in their early 20s. Like there was one in his 30s, but that was it. Like everybody else was in their early 20s. And this is a time when so many things that we're completely used to today were just coming on the scene. Like, you know, somebody had to be on the forefront of that. And he seemed like he was like on that path. One of the documentaries on YouTube that we watched, it was so funny. I died whenever he said this. Did you watch this one and hear it?
I did not know.
He goes, at a time when space exploration was as fresh as a prince in an affluent LA neighborhood. I was like, oh my God, love it.
It's so perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the world was changing and they were like at the forefront of it all.
Yeah.
And it's just pretty amazing how mature and how much they did.
Yeah. Pretty incredible. In my 20s,
Yes.
I was just drunk as hell.
Yes.
Every
How you
day.
came out of it.
I would like show up to work the next day still wearing the outfit I wore the day before because I hadn't gone home and I was just still drunk.
I do have a meme though to share about this. I saw it on, 30 as fuck or something, that
Oh, yeah.
Instagram account.
I love that one.
I know. It was so funny. I saw it this morning. It says, hungover in your 20s, takes Tylenol and goes about the day. Hungover in your 30s, writes letter. Dearest Penelope, I fear this may be the final time I am blessed to feel the warmth of the sun upon my breast. I grow more weary by the moment and prospects for survival are slim.
Yeah, exactly. Like one glass of wine and I'm dead now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Sucks to suck.
Mm-hmm.
So UPI had a system where the hiker leading the hike, Igor in this case, would plan the hike, the route, the supplies needed, the schedule, everything, and present their plan to UPI administrators who would approve or reject the plan. If the plan was approved, UPI provided a majority of the supplies. Igor had actually invented and engineered a few things that would be beneficial on a hike. He created a quote-unquote stove, which was a heater, not for cooking, that would be disassembled to be carried in the hikers' packs and then used in the tent to keep the hikers warm. He also created a quote-unquote double tent, 2 tents sewed together that could house 12 to 14 people. One item that UPI eventually rejected for use on this hike was a 2-way radio. The reasoning behind UPI rejecting the use of this tool on this hike was that it would negate the Category 3 rating. Basically, it would make the hike slightly easier.
Can you imagine the outcome had they had 2-way radios?
That's the thing. It's one of those things that when you know this much, you're like, oh my gosh, that's the key. That's where everything went wrong.
I know, because it's like, okay, maybe it would have made it slightly easier in the sense that if somebody was fatally injured or would be fatally injured without help or whatever, that somebody could get to them. But isn't that worth it? Like, it's not like they would call down and be like, hey, can we get a helicopter up here to just bring us the rest of the way? We're not really feeling it. Like, that's not what the 2-way radio is going to be used for. It's going to be used for emergencies, and you should have a way to get in touch with people.
Exactly. And I feel like it's not the same, obviously, but those shows like Naked and Afraid, or what is that one with Bear Grylls? I know that he got a lot of shit for not being like super. Yeah. But all of those shows, Survivor, all of those shows that are like you're thrown into a situation with basically nothing and you have to survive these like ridiculous extreme conditions. They all have this like button that you can hit where you're like, okay, I need help here. Like this is taking a horrible turn.
Yeah, because you're obviously not going to let somebody just starve to death or sit there with a broken leg and get attacked by animals. Like, you're not going to let somebody do that. Of course, they need to be able to get out of there if an emergency happens. Like,
absolutely. Yeah. It's just so sad that's, you very rarely see such a glaring, like, oh, that's what would have been a game changer.
I know. Yeah. And it's like, man, would they all still be alive?
Yeah. And it wasn't that they decided not to take it. They were not allowed to.
Yeah, it was rejected. No, you're not going to have this basically like safety net.
Exactly. So in November of 1958, Igor submitted the plan through the hiking club for this trip that would take place during the school's winter break, which was mid-January through mid-February. The hiking club submitted the plan to the UPI administration, and they would go on to approve the trek. Once Igor was given permission for the hike, he began putting together a team of experienced hikers and skiers to join him. Torella, you want to take the first one?
Yes. So first was 22-year-old Zena Kolmogorova. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kolmogorova.
Okay. Also, I saw the name Zenaida and I was like, I know exactly how to say that because of Zanny the Nanny.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she went by Zena. It was said that they were dating at this time, but other sources say that if there were romantic feelings towards Igor, however, there's not the slightest clue in her personal letter to him that she wrote on January 16th, 1959. I don't know. They found a picture of her in his coat, like when they found all his stuff.
Really proud of the work she was doing. I don't know.
I think they were dating. Zena was born on January 12th, 1937, and was 22 years old at the time of the hike. She was majoring in radio engineering as well. Like Igor, she'd been a longtime member of the UPI hiking club, and she was tough. She was not one to shy away from the pain and suffering that comes with completing these intense, exhausting, physically demanding hikes. One story about her that proves her dedication to the sport and her loyalty to her teammates was the time that she was on a hike just the year before this final hike. Zena was bitten by a snake, a viper. Okay. Oh my God. And she came...
That's where I stopped.
Exactly. Like draw the line. I draw the line when I see a spider, but yeah. She came very close to losing her life. After the bite, she was more worried about her team and apologized to them for being bitten by a snake. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
She felt bad that they were going to have to pick up her slack for the rest of the hike, but she refused to give up much of it, if any, like of her load. The team helped her move along, and eventually they found a family that lived in the forest. This family saved Zena's life by applying the remedies they knew about from living in the area. Zena's bite took weeks to heal and was very painful, but it did not turn her away from hiking. She was a leader and she was going to keep hiking. She was described as generous, gentle, and very popular. Again, it's like UPI. Can we look at past incidences? Had they had a two-way radio? Could they have gotten her medical help? Like, again, it's not like let's just give them a free pass. It's how about they don't die of a snake bite? How about they don't, like it's for emergencies, dude.
I know, right? Yeah, they're not just doing it. It's not like they were like, I actually also am going to need a bidet.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's not a necessity.
I need Starbucks hand delivered to me each morning, or I just simply cannot go.
Exactly. Like,
yeah.
It was a necessity. And knowing what we know now, it's like, oh, things could have been completely different had they were allowed this two-way radio. But the next team member to join was 21-year-old Yuri Nikolovich Durashenko. Yuri was in his fourth year at UPI, also studying radio engineering. Man, does the two go hand in hand, radio engineering and hiking?
Apparently.
Yeah, I'm seeing a trend here. Yuri was born January 29th, 1938, and was described as strong and reliable. Yuri and Zena had previously dated, but he had broken up with her. Ouch. The BBC article mentions that Zena had written a letter to a friend that was found after her death that suggested that Zena was actually nervous about being on the hike with Yuri Durashenko after he broke up with her. I really don't know how I'll feel. It's really hard because we are together and yet we are not together, she said. He even had met her parents. She had reportedly fallen in love with him during another hike. So Yuri had a near-death experience on a hike where his whole team was at risk, but he was the one that stepped up and protected everyone, including Zena. On this earlier hike, Yuri and his team encountered a bear that was making a beeline toward their campsite.
Oh my God.
I don't know how these are, at this point, I consider them to be kind of children. I don't mean any shade about that, but thinking about like being 22 and this was
Oh, yeah, for sure.
earlier than that. Like that's little babies. And he like stepped up and he protected everyone and like had no fear.
Against a bear. Yeah. Those are, I mean, you don't fuck with bears, man.
I'm not saying that the bears that we have here in the US are little like weenies, but I feel like everything in Russia is a little bit tougher.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that their bears are pretty fucking tough.
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So Yuri picked up a geologist's hammer and went after the bear. And he did that whole like being bigger than your opponent and, like,
give him the crazy eyes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And the bear took off and the members of the team continued on their way. And Zena was like, who is that?
Swoon.
Oh, like what I see.
Yeah.
Yuri was from a very poor family, like the kind of poor, like coat of many colors poor, like Dolly Parton poor.
Mm-hmm.
He was said to have great endurance and was considered the hardest worker of the team.
Members would continue to join the team from the hiking club. So next is 24-year-old Alexander Colebatov. He was born on November 16th, 1934, and had been in the hiking club at his previous school before enrolling in UPI and joining their hiking club. He was in his fourth year at UPI as a physics and technology major. He'd previously attended another university in Moscow where he had majored in metallurgy.
You got to be kidding me.
I have never heard this term ever.
Never in my entire life.
And now it was mentioned in Paul Bateson, Russell Williams, Snowtown, and now this case. Like, that's insane. And I feel like probably other cases that I can't remember.
Oh, for sure. But it's like the year of metallurgy.
Yeah, exactly. Alexander was described as cautious, diligent, and studious, and well-liked, admired, strong, orderly, methodical, and a natural leader. The book Death of Nine said his favorite hobby was collecting and smoking antique pipes. He was considered a very beneficial member of any hiking team.
The only other girl on this ill-fated hike was Ludmila Luda Dubanina. She was born on May 12th, 1938, and was just 20 years old, so she was the youngest hiker, but she was still a very valued member. She was an engineering and economics major at UPI and was in her third year. This hike was going to be her first Category 3 hike.
Oh.
I know. I hate when I hear this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Again, being a girl did not make her any less of a team member than the men. This was in the late 50s, so women were supposed to, be in the kitchen, be pregnant, do everything for your husband. But in Russia, that was not the case. Luda had actually been on a hike in 1957 where she had gotten shot in the leg by a hunter. It was a complete accident, but Luda had to be carried down from the hike on a stretcher.
These people, they're like, yeah, well, I got shot last time. It's like those people who go surfing and get their leg chewed off by a shark and they're like, no, I'm going to go surfing again. It's like the love of the sport, It carries them.
But what I learned, one important thing that I learned about surfing and sharks specifically is that sharks only bite when you touch their private parts.
Oh, where'd you learn that?
50 First Dates.
Okay. That makes sense. I will make sure that I never touch a shark's privates.
That scientific documentary, 50 First Dates, yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So all the while, she apologized to the other members of her team.
Ugh.
As soon as Luda had healed from the injury, in a few months, she was back hiking. And in 1958, she would return the favor when a member of the hike was injured and Luda carried their stretcher. She was said to have remained upbeat throughout.
Holy. These are just tough people.
Yeah, they're all rub some dirt in it, walk it off,
Yeah, I'm very
up and
I'm sorry. I've been shot. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard me. I've been shot. So gonna not go hiking ever again because it's dangerous.
Based on my experience dealing with something so great as, let's say, a paper cut.
Yeah.
I don't think that I would handle this well.
No, I don't. I also don't do hiking at all, but
yeah, true. Not for fun, not for anything. She was called a merrymaker and cheerful girl who loved photography and was a member of the UPI ice dancing club. Luda was also called a gifted athlete and singer. She's like a triple threat, man.
Mm-hmm.
She was called a hard worker, reliable, independent, strong, and brave. A friend of Luda said she was so excited that she was approved to go with Dyatlov, and she was kind of inspired, anxious, training, and getting ready. She was a strong person, both physically and spiritually. I would agree.
Yeah. Next up is Yuri Giorgi Crevon. He was born on February 7th, 1935, so he was 23 years old and had already graduated from UPI after studying construction and hydraulics. Wow. His degree in civil engineering helped him get a job as an engineer at Plant 817, and he had previously worked at Mayak Nuclear Plant. 23.
A lot of life at 23.
Again, I was just still probably drunk. I don't know what I was doing at 23.
Exactly. You weren't working at a nuclear plant.
No, not yet. In September of 1957, Giorgi was involved in the cleanup of the Kishtim disaster at Chelyabinsk 40, which was a secret nuclear facility. This is a nuclear contamination that was considered the worst nuclear disaster until Chernobyl happened. So now the ranking is 1, Chernobyl, 2, Fukushima, and then 3, the Kishtim disaster. Giorgi being involved in the cleanup of this massive disaster earned him a promotion to a supervisor at the plant. He was expected to start that position February 21st, which would be right after his hike with Igor and the group. And he was on a break from work for a month at the time of the hike. Igor and Giorgi had been close friends and had hiked together numerous times. He was considered the life of the party, and he was always the one to attempt to lighten the mood and make everyone laugh. He was described as a skilled artist and musician, dependable, reliable, well-liked, and well-known.
Rustim Vladimirovich Slobodan?
Yeah.
I feel like everything is like a question mark at the end of it. I'm so sorry.
I know. It's got to be painful to listen to. We're trying here.
I know. Rustim Vladimirovich Slobodan was born on January 11th, 1936. So he was also 23 years old and had already graduated from the UPI in 1958. He had received a degree in mechanical engineering and also worked at Plant 817 with Giorgi. Rustim wasn't part of the cleanup of the disaster, though. Rustim was described as very athletic. He was a long-distance runner. He was described as agile, strong, and resilient. Rustim was considered an honest and hardworking man, much like Brooks and Dunn.
Mm-hmm.
He was also musical and played the mandolin, which he would play around the campfire with his friends.
Love the mandolin.
I do too.
It's my favorite.
Ugh.
Well, that and banjo.
Same.
But, yeah.
Well, you'll take either or, I'm sure.
Yeah.
With all these amazing qualities, he was still the shyest of the hikers.
Aww.
I know. I can relate.
Then we have Yuri Yaflimovich Uden. He was born on July 19th, 1937. He was 22 when the trip was being planned. So, and there's like a lot of Yuris, obviously, you've probably noticed, but so this is Yuri Uden. He was an engineering and economic major at UPI, just like Luda. However, he had sciatica that could sometimes flare up and cause him significant pain. And this would be the only thing that saved his life from whatever happened to his friends on this trip.
Nikolai Nicholas Tibolt Brignol joined the team and was a welcome member. He was born July 5th, 1935, though this has been debated as not being his actual birth date. And at 23 years old, he was already graduated from UPI. He had earned a degree in civil engineering and gotten a job as an engineering foreman working in construction. He had lived a fairly hard life already, but he was described as cheerful, reliable, and self-confident. Nicholas was one of those guys that if he saw that a team member was struggling with their load, he would take some of the weight off of their load. He was considered extremely popular, energetic, and well-liked. It was said that he had a great sense of humor as well, and he had been a valued member of previous hikes, including many Category 3s.
The last member is Simeon Sasha Alexander Zolodorev, and he went by Sasha. And his joining the team was a little controversial. He was not an original member of the hike according to the submitted plan. He was a solid decade older than the rest of the hikers. He was born on February 2nd, 1921, and at 37 years old, Sasha had already fought in World War II, where he earned 4 combat medals. The Death of Nine book said that by the end of World War II, 97% of Russian males born in 1921 who served in the war perished as casualties of war. Sasha was one of the 3% who survived. That's incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Sasha had worked at a few schools after the war was over, both at the Moscow School of Military Engineers and Leningrad Military Engineering School. Sasha lost his job due to a reduction of students, so he went back to school. He attended the Minsk Institute of Physical Education, where he graduated in 1951. He became an athletic and hiking instructor and then applied for a job at UPI. At first, his attendance was unsettling to Igor and the other hikers. They were going on a Category 3 hike, which was, like we said, the most difficult category hike. And in this situation, everyone has to be able to trust all the members of the team, and everyone must carry their own weight and then some. The rest of the team knew each other and knew they could rely on each other and that all the other members would be reliable members of the group. But throwing in a wild card and somebody older than them kind of threw off the dynamics and unsettled the team. But Sasha quickly proved that he was going to be an active and trusted member of the team. They had worried that this older man, who was a professor who'd served in the military and fought in a war and had been one of the 3% of Russian men to survive that war, was going to swoop in and want to be in charge. But their fears were alleviated when he didn't come in thinking that he was going to lead, and showed that he respected that Igor was the leader of this hike and team. Plus, once they started getting ready, Sasha showed that he was not afraid to put in the work and be a team member to the fullest extent. So this was the team: 10 healthy, capable, strong, smart people from 20 to 37 years old. All people on the team were experienced. They had definitely all almost died previously, it seems like, on hikes, and they made it work. So they were excited for the challenge. Like, they were not, they weren't going to be held down by a minor setback.
Yes, they were all ready for what this hike was going to throw at them.
Okay, so let's talk about the trip. They started their adventure on January 23rd, 1959, and from this point on, the information that is available to the public is mostly from pictures that the hikers took and the diaries that each of them kept, and they also had a group diary that they all took turns writing in. There's also witness statements from people who saw the group during their travels to get to the actual route, but once the hike began, those other people went a different path. So once the hike starts, it's just these team members. So then we just have the diaries and the pictures. Mm-hmm. So like we said, UPI provided most of the supplies and they didn't bring extras of anything. So, you know, on a hike like this, you have to carry everything in your backpack, like on your back or on your person. So you're not going to bring anything extra. You're not going to bring anything that isn't absolutely necessary. So everybody was supposed to carry their own supplies, and then everybody would kind of split up the group supplies and carry them on. The snow in the mountains could get up to more than 10 feet deep, so skis were a requirement for the hike as well. They also were not supposed to bring alcohol on the hikes. It was frowned upon, but usually people just kind of looked the other way. And the Dyatlov group was no different. They brought vodka in a flask. They, they're like, we're sitting around the campfire. Let's have a good time. No reason to.
Well, and I'm sure that helps you stay warm.
Yeah, that's true. It does warm you up a little bit. So, that's a necessity, right? Warmth.
I think so.
On January 23rd, the team boarded a train in Sverdlovsk. They were on this train with another group of hikers led by Yuri Blinov. So that's another Yuri, who would be able to give information about the Dyatlov group up to a certain point, as well as conditions in the mountains. So this was another group from UPI, but their hike was going to take 25 days, and their route was pretty much parallel to the Dyatlov group. The train took them to Serov, where they arrived in the early morning hours of January 24th. And their next train was scheduled for 6:30 p.m. So they had a hell of a lot of time to kill. And they were not allowed to stay at the train station for whatever reason. So they had to go find something else to do. Unfortunately, because remember we said Giorgi was like the life of the party. Everybody's tired. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do for like the next 12 or so hours. Because they also have all of their gear that they have to carry everywhere with them. So they're not trying to, go walk around the city. Yeah. So Giorgi had asked Luda for money to get breakfast because she was the treasurer. And she's like, no, we did not budget that. So you're going to have to get money another way if you're going to get money. So he started singing and being like silly. And he was trying to trying to cheer everybody up. But I think he was also doing that as people walk by, you can put money in a hat because I'm singing kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But a police officer came up and was like, this is a good communist town and there's no crime here and certainly no disruption of the peace. So they arrested him and they took him to the police station. And they were like, you are absolutely not going to make noise and bother people.
That is insane.
Yeah. And luckily, after he'd been there a couple of hours, because, they had over 12 hours to kill, they ended up letting him go. And they were just like, don't do that again, basically. Keep quiet and we won't do anything about it. So they were still able to make their second train, but that definitely could have jacked up their whole schedule.
They could have derailed everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they ended up finding a school,
right?
Yeah, that was near the station. So they went there and talked to the students about hiking, and the school let them hang there for a while and set their supplies down so they didn't have to carry them everywhere. So they enjoyed doing that. And then when that was done and it was time to go back to the station, they caught their train. So then they went to Ivdel, where they arrived around midnight, and they were allowed to stay at this train station. So they got out their sleeping bags and everything, and they just rested until the bus got there. This bus would take them to a village called Vijay, where the group would finally get a chance to sleep for real. They arrived in Vijay around 2 p.m. on January 25th, and at this point, the Dyatlov group and the Blinov group split. So finally, on January 26th, the Dyatlov group hopped on an open truck and left Vijay. They rode in this fashion for 3 hours before getting to their first real destination, which was 41st Quarter. This was a logging settlement, and the group of hikers was given a hostel to stay during their short time here. And they just stayed one night, and they watched movies, and they talked, and Rustim played mandolin. Zena said in her diary that most of their conversations were about love, and it was just kind of carefree, fun night. On January 27th, the Dyatlov group packed their shit, and at about 4 p.m., they headed to a mining town called Second North. But by this time, Yuri Uden's sciatica had flared up to an unbearable pain, and he was like, look, I'm just going to hold you guys back. There's no way I can go on this hike and carry my own weight and help. So he decided that he would split off and go back to Sverdlovsk. He was an important member of the team, but he knew that it would just make everything harder. And he was just like, look, it's going to be easier without me. On January 28th, he headed back home after he split up his supplies with the team and had a brief talk with Igor. When he left around 10 a.m., that would be the last time any of his friends were seen alive. On January 28th, around 11:45 a.m., the group left Second North with one less person and began their hike. They hiked until about 4 p.m., where they took a break for lunch, and the group would hike for another hour and a half before they stopped for the night. During this first night, they were in high spirits and spent the night singing and talking around the campfire. This is also when they would do chores. So they had a rule that after they finished camping and when they were setting up for the night, they had to get all of their stuff done before anybody could actually sit around the fire. And then somebody would document the day in the group diary, and then others would write in their personal journals or do whatever they wanted to do. In her personal diary, Zena wrote that Igor had been in a bad mood all evening and that she just didn't recognize it. Luda would be the one to write in the group diary that night, and her entry was very detailed. She talked about being sad that Yuri didn't get to come on the hike. She explained that their hike involved each person taking turns leading the group for 10 minutes and that they finally stopped for the night at 5:30 p.m. She also said that they spent the night talking about love and that someone comes up with the idea that we need a special notebook for ideas that we might come up with. Conspiring, we started going into the tent 2 people at a time. Luda's entry tells us that Alexander was the guy on duty for the night to keep an eye on the stove. The crew was headed toward Mount Ortorton, which was a name given to the area by a native people called the Mansi. The Mansi were reindeer herders and had many signs and writing symbols on them throughout the woods. This nomadic group of people was also known to offer food and shelter to hikers. There would be theories later that the Mansi had something to do with what happened to the Dyatlov group, but like everybody else was like, no, they're always super welcoming to hikers. They help them out. Like they've never been violent towards a hiker before. Why would they all of a sudden just like kill 9 people? It doesn't make sense.
Well, yeah, it's not like, oh my gosh, like Wrong Turn or yeah, The Hills Have Eyes or whatever. Like,
yeah. And a lot of people thought that the names of the areas involved in the case like were ominous, because Ortorton, where they were headed, means do not go there in Mansi. And then the area where they set up camp their last night was Mount Kolat Sayakal. And that means dead mountain. And it sounds like, okay, they went somewhere they weren't supposed to, and maybe, they were killed for that or whatever. But the Mansi came up with those names just because they weren't good areas to hunt. So they were just like, don't go there. You're not going to find anything. Like, It's just functional for them.
Yeah. On January 29th, in negative 13 degrees Celsius, and that is 8.6 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yuck.
Which we all know Torello would be deader than a damn doornail. Just by the temperature.
Yeah.
The team went about their hike in much the same way, where each man, quote unquote, took a 10-minute turn leading the group, and then the group as a whole would take short breaks after all the people had taken their turn leading. So every 70 minutes, they took a break. Yeah. The hikers used the Mansi signs to lead them and the ski trails the Mansi had created.
And they only, just the men took turns being the leader. The 2 women did not lead.
The January 29th was also Yuri Durashenko's 21st birthday. January 30th was, again, much more of the same, starting their hike at 9:30 a.m. with 4 feet deep snow and temperatures between a high of negative 13 and all the way down to negative 26, which is negative 14 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yep.
The group the group makes their way higher up the mountain. They stop for lunch around 2 p.m. And by the way, lunch is dried meat, crackers, sugar, garlic, and coffee.
Yuck.
Yes. Like, where's the Panera?
Yeah. Does Panera deliver up here, do you think?
I know. They finished their day around 5 p.m. to set up camp. According to their diaries, Luda and Nicholas had a spat about chores, and Luda ended up retreating into the tent. At some point, there was an incident where Yuri's coat and mittens were burned, and Zena wrote in her diary that she burned her mittens and Yuri's jacket at the campfire. He cursed me a lot. In her personal diary, Zena also says that they will probably build a storage area sooner rather than later. A storage site is just a shelter where hikers can put some of their supplies while they finish the upward ascent of their hike. Then they would pick it all up on the way back down. This way they weren't having to carry as much of a heavy load.
Let's get to the last day. The final entry in the group diary was written on January 31st by Igor. Nothing was out of the ordinary. The weather was noted as being a bit worse wind with snow and a perfectly clear sky. The temperatures were reported as negative 18 degrees Celsius and negative 24 degrees Celsius. So this is between like negative 0.4 and negative 11.2 Fahrenheit. The team started their day around 10 a.m., and it would appear that they encountered a hunter. So the way that the group diary was written out, it seems like the way that they encountered the hunter was that just they saw the footprints and they could tell that it was a hunter. It doesn't seem like they actually came into contact with anybody. In the diary, Igor wrote that walking was harder on this day and that visibility was very low to the point where they have to advance gropingly, quote unquote, covering only about 1 mile per hour. He wrote that they were exhausted and that he, quote unquote, can't even start thinking of setting up a storage. So despite what Zina wrote in her diary the previous day, the group at this point had not yet set up the storage site and almost 4 p.m. the following day. Igor also made note that they were running low on firewood because all the trees were damp. On February 1st, there are no more diary entries, which means this is the end of our concrete knowledge on what the Dyatlov hikers did in those snow-covered mountains.
So let's get into the investigation. By February 12th, when the team hadn't returned, no one was especially worried about it. Like we said earlier, teams often get held up for one reason or another. Plus, Yuri Uden had given UPI the message from Igor that they had already planned to be delayed until the 14th. On top of that, the Blinov group that had traveled the first leg of the journey with the Dyatlov group reported that the snow was heavy, which was supported by the news. February 14th came and went without word from the Dyatlov group. By February 17th, families had grown concerned. Luda and Alexander's parents called UPI, but they were reassured by UPI that everything was fine. Delays are normal. In fact, Lev Semyonovich Gordo, the head of the sports club at UPI, lied to the parents, telling them that they had received a telegram from the group. That's inappropriate.
So inappropriate. Like, just to get people off your back, like, dude, they're going to know that you're lying.
This reminds me of the Millbrook twins.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we found them.
Just because you don't want to, like, file the paperwork and deal with all that? Like, that's fucking...
Absolutely
that's
ridiculous.
Not okay. No. Yeah. Ugh. But a few more days would pass, and there would still be no sign or word from the hikers, so the families decided that they were done waiting. After a February 20th meeting with the Sverdlovsk City Committee and UPI administrators, the committee and administrators decided it was time to send out searchers to attempt to locate the missing hikers. Colonel Giorgi Semyonovich Ortyakov was the head of the military department of UPI, and he took the lead in creating the search and rescue. According to the Death of Nine book, at this time, there were no formal search parties, and because of this, a search party consisted of anyone willing and able. In this case, it was students, instructors, and experienced winter outdoorsmen. We would not make the cut.
No, it'd be like indoor girls who don't own any tennis shoes, not welcome.
Well, now hang on, that's not very fair. Can the tennis shoes be 4-inch platforms?
No.
Okay, well, I'm out.
Yeah, you're right.
And to make up the budget, businesses and universities would donate to the search effort. With this search effort and community involvement, a plane was sent on the 21st to fly over the area and look for signs of the Dyatlov group. Unfortunately, Joey wasn't part of the group and didn't spell out ple in sticks, which would have been seen from the
from the
airplane that said help. Yeah. So they couldn't see anything. No help sign or whatever.
Yeah.
It would be another 3 days before they found the Dyatlov group's abandoned campsite on the Kolat Siakal slope. The tent had partially collapsed and there was some snow on top of it. Outside the tent was a pair of skis and an ice axe along with a flashlight laying on top of the crumpled tent. The searchers tried the flashlight and it still worked. Lots of other little things were found outside the tent and strewn about the snow. Things like socks, hats, loose change, etc. Also left behind was Igor's coat with a pocket knife and a picture of Zina in the pockets.
See?
I'm guessing it didn't get so warm that he didn't need his coat, though.
Right. Yeah. Also near the tent and more unsettling than what was left behind were the footprints in the snow leading away from the tent. So the prints were described as shallow indents that would lead one to believe that the group left calmly since they were neat. The disturbing part about this is that the footprints appeared to have been made by people without shoes on. And like you said, it did not get so warm that they were like, let's just go barefoot. Either socked or bare feet would make these prints. And not only did the prints look like bare feet in shape, the prints weren't indentions anymore as you would expect, but they were more like columns. And you kind of have to see the picture to understand this. But apparently what they're saying is if you step in the snow barefoot or with just socks, the warmth from your feet would melt the snow, which then refreezes into ice. So then the snow around the ice gets blown away and it just leaves like the ice that you've stepped down in, you know. Mm-hmm. So it's like columns of ice left everywhere. So that's a big indicator that they definitely didn't have shoes on either. It was also noted that there were marks that looked like handprints and drag marks with the footprints. The prints went on for about 30 feet and then disappeared. The searchers carefully opened the tent half, prepared to find at least a few bodies. There were none, but there were other things that alarmed the search team. Left behind in the tent was food, a pile of boots, blankets, backpacks, diaries, buckets, a metal box, 4 cameras, a flask of vodka, a saw, a flashlight, 3 axes, a knife, 2 kettles, a first aid kit, 3 compasses, a pocket watch, and a partridge and a pear tree. Like, I feel like there's so much. Outside the tent, the searchers found socks and slippers wrapped in what turned out to be Igor's checkered shirt, and they also found a place where someone had peed in the snow. It even appeared as though the group had been in the middle of dinner when whatever caused them to abandon the tent had happened. There was sallow cut up on a plate, which is white pork fat that at the time was a delicacy and provided a significant amount of calories for hikers. There was bread, biscuit, sugar, and a cup of cocoa all laid out on the floor, and the stove for heating the tent was said to be full of kindling that had not yet been burned. A searcher said most of the meat on the plate was sliced up as if they were getting ready to have supper or something and just didn't have time. The searchers read the diaries in an attempt to glean information about the Dyatlov group's trip. They opened the metal box and found Igor's passport, the group's return train tickets, and 700 rubles, which if you do like conversion to US dollars and then inflation for today, that's like about $1,500. With all the money and supplies left behind, it was clear that the Dyatlov group had not been attacked by criminals looking for money. It's also important to know that the things inside the now flat tent, such as crackers and other delicate items, were not crushed or broken at all. So that kind of rules out the avalanche possibility. Continuing to search the tent did not alleviate fears. The search team also found a bamboo ski pole that had been cut up. The top was off and a notch was carved in the wood of the pole. And that's significant because, like we said, the team only brought exactly what was needed. They did not have anything extra. And there were 2 poles for each hiker. So if one is cut up, then somebody doesn't have what they need. They don't have enough. Mm-hmm. There were so many pieces of clothing and protective gear that had been left behind that it made searchers worried about the hikers. I mean, it basically was all of their clothes, all of their shoes, everything. And, you know, again, it is so cold out there. Nobody in their right mind, or if you're able to take everything with you, you're not going to walk out basically in your like underwear, socks, or barefoot, you know? Like there's something going on, obviously. Then once the canvas of the tent had been stretched out, the searchers found that there were 2 small cuts and then a long cut in the side of the tent, which they would later determine that it had been cut from the inside. Since it was 1959, forensics and procedure were more like suggestions than rules. So the search team that found the campsite basically just plowed through all the things left there and emptied the backpacks and threw everything into one big pile that was packed up and taken to Ivdel. Once everything was in Ivdel, Yuri Uden had the unfortunate job of identifying all the things and their original owner, but there were some items that he was like, no, I don't think these belong to anybody. I didn't see them with anybody.
So strange.
Yeah, really strange. At this point, though, no one is thinking they're going to find the hikers dead, and they especially aren't thinking that if they did find them dead, there might be concerns about how they died. The priority to collect forensic evidence was low, plus it was the 50s. And because of this, things were overlooked and not documented. There are only pictures of one side of the tent, so we don't know if there were cuts on both sides. The searchers would also end up using the group's cameras they found in the tent to take pictures during the search. And it was determined by Sverdlovsk Research Crime Lab that the seamstress in Ivdel had been correct and the tent had been cut from the inside out. It had not been cut, torn open, or even started with a knife and then ripped. It had been fully cut all the way down the side of the tent. It was also noted that there were more small knife scrapes along the inside of the tent that led the investigators to conclude that they hadn't made the cut in the spur of the moment, that they'd made some preliminary cuts before making the main one. The fact that they would cut open their tent concerned everyone. Like, you know, in that's a harsh environment. It's absolutely frigid. Your tent is your shelter. It's your protection. It's what essentially keeps you alive. But for whatever reason, they decided to slice down the side of the tent instead of going out of the front or the back. So, I mean, that's a huge question. What would have made them think that that was the best course of action? Because now you've got no tent for the rest of your trip if you're trying to make it somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah, that was your only shot.
Yeah.
Something like that.
With the help of the Mansi trackers, the search team located a storage site that belonged to the Dyatlov group. It appeared that the group had created the site before whatever had happened, but they had never come back to the spot to access any of the supplies. More confusing, though, was the fact that there was a pair of skis that were crisscrossed marking the site. Again, it's confusing because the group didn't have a spare set of skis, so whoever would have left their skis would not have been able to continue skiing with the group and would also have had difficulty just walking around the campsite and to and from the storage site. Like, you know, that snow is so deep, you've got to have the skis. And again, this person has nothing.
Exactly.
Then on February 27th, the search team found the first 2 missing hikers. And we're going to cliffhang you. I know. What a bitch move we did.
I know, but here's the thing. If you can't wait and you want to hear the rest of this right meow, if you're on the Patreon, you got it, girl.
You got it. It's there.
Yes. And if you don't want it right now and you can wait, if you have any kind of self-control, which we don't,
I don't.
That's great.
Yeah.
And we're fine with that.
Totally. Yeah, wait till next
week. You can wait until, it's fine.
No probs.
So those are your options, but we hope to catch you on the next episode where we conclude the Dyatlov Pass.
Yes. We love you guys.
Bye.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on this case. Connect with us on Instagram or Facebook to continue the conversation.
Thanks for listening, and we will meet you back here next week.
Bye!
The theme song for the show is created and composed by Stephen Toby. You can find more of Stephen's work on SoundCloud.
Our logo was created by Sloan Williams of Sophisticated Crayon. You can find more of her work on Etsy. Visit us at KillerQueensPodcast.com for merch and other info about the show.